Well, the government's move to drop some tax proposals contained in the 2024-2025 finance bill was met with mixed reactions. While some members of the public and the Kenya Private Sector Alliance were busy celebrating what they termed concessions by government, it is now emerging that the country may be worse off financially as a result and could now be in the crosshairs of the IMF for failing to adhere to the set of conditions for financing that is key for economic stability. Peter Wakaba breaks down the number.
With government having dropped the proposals to tax, among other things, bread and excise duty on cooking oil, the circulation tax on motor vehicles, among other key proposals, experts are now looking at the gap that this will leave in the government's financing plan and whether Treasury will once again turn to the International Monetary Fund to plug this hole. While presenting the budget statement in Parliament, Treasury CS Professor Njuguna Ndung'u pointed at the figure of some 3.99 trillion shillings as the total budget. This would be financed through revenue of some 3.34 trillion shillings, with 2.9 trillion of that projected to be raised as taxes and 400 billion as appropriations in aid or money raised by government agencies through fees, levies and fines. The difference between the budget of 3.99 trillion and the revenues of 3.34 billion, coupled to grants of some 51.8 billion shillings, point to a deficit or gap of 597 billion shillings, which the government has to raise by borrowing. With key tax measures now dropped, this deficit is expected to become even bigger and leaving the government with an even bigger hole. And while experts may not yet have an exact figure of the shortfall, pundits point to the shortfall in revenue over the current financial year, which attained 2.02 trillion shillings against a set target of 2.57 trillion, a shortfall of some 550 billion shillings with barely 2 weeks left in the financial year. In the last IMF staff agreement review published on June the 10th, 2024, the Financial Agency of the United Nations lauded steps taken by the country to increase revenue collection, saying that, and I quote, "The authorities have taken decisive steps towards fiscal consolidation by introducing several different measures in the context of the draft 2024-2025 budget and the 2024 finance bill," end quote. With government having now caved in to the public's demands and thrown out the more contentious of the proposals, Treasury is now left to face the wrath of the IMF, especially with an executive board review coming up in a few weeks. With IMF intervention having been key to shoring up the value of the Kenya shilling in January 2024, at the peak of the crisis occasioned by debt repayment challenges, when the shilling dramatically lost value against major currencies, sliding to about 160 shillings versus the US dollar, the Bretton Woods displeasure may just be enough to send Kenya teetering on the edge once again. The announcement today, however, moved the markets marginally, with the dollar strengthening marginally against the Kenya shilling. For about 2 months now, the trading value of the shilling to the dollar has been oscillating